like that.
Where's the grabbing versus the just touching things with sticky sweet hands?
Oh, I like that.
Hello and welcome to the Fuck Suffering Podcast. I am your hostess, Ray Hance. I am a writer, gardener, and guide. When life gets relentless, I guide people towards surrender and seeing the beauty in that relentlessness and finding that trust in as long as you're here, you're held. Life is not working against you, it's teaching you how to edit. When we tend to grab at that which doesn't belong to us, we suffer. And that is why I call my practice groups Fuck Suffering. And it's why this podcast is called the Fuck Suffering Podcast. Because the more we let life all the way in, including the suffering and the joy and the whole range, as long as we're willing to be fully alive, we will be fully alive. And that is really uncomfortable sometimes. The more we can be with discomfort, the more fully alive we become. That can be a hard pill to swallow when our entire culture is about insulating us from discomfort. So today's guest has come in with quite a few uncomfortable situations, especially around pregnancy, abortion, and miscarriage. We also talk about respecting grief, abandonment wounds, nervous system capacity. When is there just nothing to defend? When do we get to just put down our weapons and experience the courage of sweetness, surrendering to service? We ask, what is sincere? What's the difference between walking away and running away? If you would like the book that I read from in this podcast, it's called Oracle of Emergence, an evolutionary I Ching, and it's on Amazon. If you'd like to book a private reading with me, like I do for our guests on the show, you can come to rayhance.com, REIHANCE.com, and go to the Oracle of Emergence page. Thank you so much for joining us today. And what is our guest's question for the I Ching this week? How can I love us in the way that we need?
I mean, it's always like it's always there. Like, how can I be of better service in a reciprocal way? Like I'm willing to pour myself and open myself up, and but I need to be cared for and taken care of.
Mm-hmm. So what's currently missing in that equation?
The biggest shock, and it was kind of a shock, but it was also sort of expected, was this retreat that I'm trying to land. Like, it's just not going to happen right now. And I was kind of like sort of planning on using that just to kind of hold an anchor and pull my energy in and really give me something to focus on, and sort of, just kind of bring structure. So when that disappeared, that was yet another shock to my system. It was also kind of a relief.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel like that limited your capacity to be of service, or is it refining your service?
Let's go with it's refining it.
Okay.
Because I am getting energy into my practice right now, and that actually feels easier to sort of hold and sustain. Like, energetically, when I like trying to get the structure of the retreat, like physically, and get people there, like it was just, it kept blinking in and out kind of. It was just, it just wasn't able to fully land, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does. It does.
Yeah. And the last one that I did, and I you know, like I keep kind of comparing it, like the last one that I did, I was in such a different place with my honey, like we were just like kind of moving towards each other and really playing with each other. And I felt both come in at the same time, like this relationship with this man and this retreat, like they came in at the same day. And the relationship came in as this tree, this little sapling, and the retreat came in as like this honeycomb mycelium, like like this amazing thing. But that was the retreat that I hosted last fall. And that was the experience that I had like in July when I decided I was going to do it. I was going to do it with someone else. And then I decided just to do it on my own. And this time, like I, like with my honey, our relationship, we just hit pause on it, which is actually okay with me. I was thinking about doing it myself. He brought up he wound up bringing up the conversation. I feel like I have to, and this puts a lot of pressure on me, but I've noticed it. I've noticed the impact of it. Whatever is churning through me psychically, he will eventually talk about. Like I don't even necessarily have to bring up the topic of conversation. So I was sort of in a space of like debating, like whether I wanted to stay together or not. And then he brings up that conversation, and then I'm like, okay, I don't actually want to do that. Like, I don't actually want to break up. Like, let's put pause on it. But I was thinking prior to him bringing up that conversation that I was going to use the retreat to be like, let's just talk after my retreat. Like, that gives you like a month. That gives me like a month just to like really focus in on ourselves and our lives. Right. So we decided to put things on pause. I'm like, I'll just deal with him after the retreat. And then the retreat disappears. And so it's like, I feel like in more ways than one, the thing that I planned on like structuring things around just like fucking disappeared. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sure does.
And there's a conversation, you know, he and I haven't talked for a couple of weeks, which is actually fairly not abnormal for us. And there's been a lot kind of churning through me in that in between time, like going down into those feminine spaces where like you can't really like, they can't go, you know, and particularly in like talking with women about like miscarriage and abortion, like that's something that from a physical experience standpoint, like he can't understand.
Did you have a miscarriage recently with him? You did. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we weren't going to keep it. So it was like, what I actually did was I demanded that she take it. I demanded. I didn't ask. I fucking demanded. I was like, I can't do this. We can't do this. You fucking take this. Like, you owe me this.
Uh-huh.
I feel kind of arrogant and like, oh, what are the consequences of that, Justice? Like, well, my dog has died. My relationship's on pause. My retreat came apart. Like,
yeah.
And I offered her, I was like, I will serve you. I will do what you ask of me, hollow bone and all of that, but you fucking owe this to me. You take this. Like,
would he have wanted to have a baby with you?
We both did and didn't. That's the hard part, you know. He's still raising two small children. We're both in our 40s. I'm a grandmother, you know. He's an over-the-road trucker. So essentially with his business being what it is, like I would have been doing a single mom thing to a large degree.
Right.
And with my business, like it would have really diluted the energy and focus of everything that we were doing. And the image that I had that I shared with him was like, if we were to do this, it would be like taking like a bassinet and hanging it off of this little sapling that is our relationship. And he jumps right on that. And he was like, and saplings are strong, so they'll take it. But like inside it'll hurt him. And I could hear it, like the fibers of it, like fracturing under that possibility of like trying to bring a baby in the world together. And like, he doesn't have very good relationships with any of his mother's children. And like, just like, I didn't want to
With
wind up
his children, you mean? Like
his mother's children. He's a great dad. Like,
with his, what do you mean his mother's children?
with his children's mothers.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, I'm not confused. Okay.
No, with his children's mothers. Yeah. He doesn't have the relationships with his children's mothers, but beautiful relationships with his children. So I didn't want to wind up I don't want to recreate anything that he's already done. And like, come to really kind of see this sort of performative part of myself where, like, there's a part of me that's been trying to step into the absence that, like, his last relationship left, and his life doesn't exist in that same way anymore. Like, me and his kids super bonded really easily and effortlessly, but at the same time, it's like there's some part of me that, like, I can see it, that's been kind of trying to, I don't know, fill that space for him. And he said it in our last conversation. He was like, I can't use you to fill this space in myself. It was like, we're both trying to get more clean in the way that we do relationship dynamics. And that's true across the board for my practice. That's true in every area of my life.
Isn't that, doesn't that negative space do some summoning though?
In which way?
Like, loving another human being is not clean.
It's not.
You know what I mean? So like, I think I find this in myself too, like of being so like, oh, this empty space is my responsibility. Well, I mean,
right.
That empty space was also the call that you responded to.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I try not to be too hard on myself around like, yeah, of course that relationship is going to come in and to fill some of those empty spaces. That's the beauty of that polarity, you know?
Right. Yes. And I agree, but stepping into it in a way that is genuine for each of us is different than trying to play a role in that.
Absolutely. Space. Yeah.
And for me, I feel like the role playing sort of all across the board falling away for me. Like, before we had this conversation, like, I wrote really clearly, like, I want to be loved for me. Like, I want to step into our dynamic as myself for me, for who I am, all of who I am. And, not trying to play that out as if I were someone else. Like, does that make sense? It's a distinction. But it also feels, and it feels relevant for my work as well. Like, just getting even more clear in who I am and what I have to bring to the world through my work too. So those feel aligned. And the fact that the fact that I was planning on just like not having, like, I'm just not going to deal with this until after their treat. And their treat's like, I'm not going to be here.
Looks like you'll be dealing with it now.
Exactly. Like, fine.
Do you find, this is something that I find, like, that developing that discernment between what is performative and what is like usefully theatrical big energy? Like, where am I just following the bigger resonance?
Well, that's a great question.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that sometimes that can feel so full that I'm like, oh, am I tipping over at the top of my range?
Yeah.
Or am I just really like, wow, I'm in the big resonance?
So I don't have neurological capacity for the big resonance right now. I don't have it. It's like my system is just blown from all
grief and Yeah.
So it'll come back, like I'll regrow it. And for me, like there's a sort of my mom tells a story about how when we went and saw what was it called? Like the little Orphan Annie movie, right? Annie.
Yeah.
At the end of Annie, when the movie was over, I took an empty popcorn bucket and stuck it on my head and was like marching down the aisle singing "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow." Like that's the performative quality of me that is natural for me.
Right.
And that doesn't feel performative. That just feels fun.
Right. And that's why I like to get to like, cause like, it's so easy to villainize that big energy and like out of actually like a fear of stepping into our full expression. And I think it's so important to differentiate that between that and something that's like unhelpfully performative.
Right. Unhelpfully performative for me typically is more involved with shrinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's also like, there's a time and place, and this is what I'm in right now, where it feels really good to feel small and it feels really good to feel quiet.
Yeah. Humility is really replenishing.
Yeah. And it feels really good to feel really secluded.
Uh-huh. Yeah. That's a lot for your body to go through. Holy shit. Like between miscarriage and losing your best fur friend. Like
yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I keep being like, okay, like enough of this. Like it's been this amount of time over this. And like, my body's like, but I'm not like,
no, you don't come out of the Delta till the Delta's ready to let you go.
Yeah.
Can't claw your way out.
No. And like, I definitely like physically, just because of our circumstances, haven't been able to tether to him, but like psychically and energetically and communication wise, I've definitely been tethering to him. So for the last couple of weeks, not tethering to him has really allowed me to go more into that even more feminine space. And I understand that like from a traditional, this is how a relationship should look and function standpoint, like it makes no damn sense, but it is actually specifically entirely exactly what I need. We both do capacity in different ways. Like I tend to spew, spin, discharge, and he's a shutdown withdrawer. So he'll shut down, withdraw. He'll sort of chew and churn through himself, and then he'll come back. He'll come back out of that. I get to that place too, but not until after I've spewed, spun, and discharged. Then I hit shutdown.
Right.
And when I hit shutdown, it's like that when I won't leave my house for days at a time. Like I don't I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to do anything. I have to be I've learned that it's okay to be really mindful and be like, I can see 2 clients today and you have to wait till, I can put you 2 here and like, and I'm getting to where I can actually feel it and hold it in my nervous system. That's another reason why I haven't been reaching out to him either. Like I can feel it in my nervous system. I can actually feel it in my nervous system. Like this isn't what I need right now. And I've gotten to this place where I actually feel like, whereas I didn't feel this way when like particularly, this is just the last couple of months in general. I feel like my abandonment wound has been so extremely triggered, I kind of didn't trust that he was going to be there. And then it's like, we're now in this pause space and my whole system is like, oh yeah, he's not going anywhere. like get out of what you're habitually doing and like running through that old groove, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Like take a breath, take a pause, and be like, oh no, he's not actually.
Yeah. That moment when you realize there's nothing to defend.
Yeah.
There's really nothing to defend.
And that, like, there is a genuine innate protectiveness in me, but there is also like a well-formed, long ingrained defensiveness as well. And that feels performative, the defensiveness.
I mean, that's also like straight up limbic brain shit too, though.
Yeah.
You know, like that giving that its due, I think is important as well. You know, you can't always.
Yeah.
Really touching that and allowing that capacity to grow and like noticing.
Well, and then the one other weird thing that's happened through all of this is that, like, after 4 years of having zero contact with my dad, he and I have been texting again.
Wow.
Like, you know, I texted him to let him know that my dog had died because it felt like kind of a safe thing. And I was also just in the, like, I don't even give a fuck. Like, I'm just going to see what happens state. And he, when he replied, and then he like continued to sort of message me like a normal human being, I was like, I don't trust it. I out of like all the beings on the planet who have ever hurt me in any way, shape, or form, he has hurt me more than anyone else. So no, I don't trust it. And yet there's an openness and there's a curiosity to like that. But it doesn't take away the past. It doesn't take away our past reactions.
Do you have to trust him to trust it?
No, because I can trust myself,
right.
And all I'm willing to trust myself with right now is an occasional text message.
Yeah.
Like I thought about calling him at one point, and my body was like,
well, because it's like you're knowing when you're too fragile for that level of disappointment that you experience has shown you is inevitable.
Yes.
Like, you know, yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah. Like I just can't afford to be dropped right now.
Yep.
Yeah. I can very much relate to that spot. Like I trust myself enough to not put myself in a position to be dropped right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've experienced that same quality with my partner as well, just not out of a malicious standpoint for him, or like really much more out of like a capacity standpoint of to understand.
Well, it's interesting to have to be clear about an abandonment wound and date a trucker.
I know.
Way to work it. Good practice.
Really good practice.
Yeah. Kudos on that one.
He and I have healed so much of my anxiety.
That's beautiful.
Better through
that's beautiful.
Our dynamic functions.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you for saying that.
Is really beautiful.
Yeah, he's a good man. Like my whole, like, I recognized, that I had gotten into these sort of more narcissistically inclined relationships over the years without having the awareness of it. But I was almost like too much scrutinizing him, like looking for that. And then the more the time I got to spend specifically with the way that he is with his kids, narcissists don't parent their kids like that. It's not effective. They're not capable. They're not capable of that kind of just deep, humble, grounded interaction with their children in the way that he does. And my whole soul, everything in me is like, loves that about him. Just absolutely loves that about him.
So the question is, are you sure the question is about how to serve better?
No, that's just always the front one.
I feel like there's something more intimate under there.
I really want to know how to hold myself and then him and then our relationship in a way that feels nurturing and stable for me. And there's a background question of, should I just let it go? When I feel into that, like that feels.
Is there, okay. So is there a non yes or no question in there?
Non yes or no question. No, it's just more, how can I love us in the way that we need?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I always love this part of the podcast where like the question becomes really clear. And then it's like, oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Did you bring your 3 coins?
Did not bring 3 coins.
Oh, do you have 3 coins?
Sure, I do. Yeah.
Perfect.
I have a whole jar full of change. So.
Perfect. So just hold your question in your hands with the coins and feel, all the hands that have touched the coins over their lifetime and all the hands that have touched your hands over your lifetime, and just feel all of that confluence over space and time just landing in your hands right now in this moment, in those coins that have crazy things coming together. What a miracle to have those 3 coins in your hands and us to be here in this exact moment. It's fucking amazing. So just keeping in mind your question, and in your body, your question, how can I love us in the way that we need?
Feels so sweet.
It does. It really does. That was the right question. Sweet. Yeah. So feeling into that question, and you're going to hold the coins, and then you're going to gently shake them and throw all 3 coins 6 times. And each time you throw them, you're going to tell me how many heads and how many tails. Whenever you're ready, just take your time.
Okay. So 2 tails, 1 head. I actually don't know. Yeah, 2 tails, 1 head. Three tails. This is fun. 3 tails again. Oh, where'd it go? 1 head and 2 tails. Three heads. Three tails.
Okay. That's it.
That's it.
You have hexagram 17 into hexagram 14. It's like hexagram 14 is treasure, and it's sort of enveloping the whole reading. So,
some of that.
17 is beacon. So it's the flashing of the North Star, the floating of the compass needle, the lighthouse on the shore. The way is being shown to you so that you may show the way. Trust the signaling glint. Be moved. Feel how you're being tugged now. Move with what's moving you. Don't be afraid to be seen. Don't be afraid to take action. Drop pearls willy-nilly. More will come as grit continues to meet sentience and diligence. Feel and follow the beacon. There's nothing to fear. Just take this next step. Follow the way like the spring follows winter. Spring isn't like, how am I supposed to green everything up? Look at it out there. Everything looks dead. Is this what you sound like? Cut it out. Listen to the people around you. Sense the seeds of genius in them and cultivate with care. Be like the bird who senses the tsunami or the dog who knows the earthquake is coming. Those are beacons too. The quickening before impact, a coalescence of energy. Follow and be followed. You are being followed precisely because of your devotion to surrender, to following the bigger thing. You're like a caravan leader who doesn't quite know the route but can navigate by the stars, the sailor who feels the wind and skillfully tacks. A master translates what she receives in her body rather than initiating action from her preferences. Believe that you are the leader here at your peril. You are a follower. That's how you lead, by following. Leader is not your identity, it's your responsibility in this situation. You are a vessel and a captain, ship and sailor both, responsive and observant, not reactive. Take up life force energy like the willow takes up water. Remain moist and pliable, and resistance is unnecessary. Even in the fiercest wind, you will be unbreakable. Open your body to be filled with light. Cling to no clogs. Only then can you be a lamp unto yourself. This hexagram is one of sincere devotion on the part of everyone involved. The followed and the followers are equally devoted. Prevalent and constant is the beacon. Make it so you can be followed with delight. When you are followed with delight, you can lead with ease, just like a lamp does, just by being itself. It expresses its essential nature, and its next right action is clear. A lamp lamps with ease. You're at least as smart as a lamp, right? Surrender your preferences and follow what comes. And so there's a lot of flux, though, between beacon and treasure. So there's a lot that's like unsettled right now. So you have 4 changing lines at 2, 3, 5, and 6. So now I'll read I'll read treasure in a second, but like this following and being followed, like here are the things that are like the things that are still coming through about how that beacon leads to opening the treasure chest. Innocence isn't childish, it's childlike. Maintaining a childlike sense of play isn't at odds with maturity. It enhances it. It brings lightness to the most arduous of tasks. Don't be childish and don't accept childish behavior in others. If the child is you, accept this invitation to grow up. You can nurture without mothering, love without saving. Saving, after all, is just what your little self does to stay with someone you believe will never leave you. Someone you've trained to believe they can't live without you. That's not love, that's control. And 3, it's time to exchange what is immature for what is mature, what is self-centered for what is wise. You've got this. Lose your losses. The shedding is shed. Open to life and be a master of your life force. Don't leak all over the place. You're better than that. Nobody needs to clean up your messes but you. Maintain innocence and maturity. This is not a paradox. And then
it's not a paradox.
And then 5, keep your standards high and your heart sincere. Stay in alignment. Remain so grounded that you can immediately feel when you fall out. Good fortune follows. And then 6 at the top, be devoted to doing what needs to be done, serving whoever or whatever requires your service. You've done the work to integrate and are being summoned out of retirement to re-enter public life. You might not feel like leading, but that's what you're being called to do. Your calling is bigger than you. It's why you're here in this body at this time. It might not be your preference, but it is your responsibility. You'll know it when you feel it. You'll know it when you feel lit. Surpass your remaining self-centered limitations. Surrender to service. You'll love it once you get going, mostly.
Mostly.
So this is how did that land for you?
I feel like it encompassed my first question as well as the second one. I feel like they're tied together. I don't feel like the way that I have been programmed to show up in relationship in the past has always interfered with me being of service. And
It has?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, yeah. It's one
How?
of the reasons. I lived with someone I lived with someone for 9 years who we met when I was teaching my dad's work. We met at a seminar. And we moved very quickly into relationship with each other. We moved into moving in with each other. And I thought, I had found someone who would want to do the kind of work that I did, who was wired in a similar fashion to me because of how we met. And I sort of got attached to that idea and didn't want to let that go. Mm-hmm. But what wound up happening was that I feel like he's someone who was actually very kind of threatened by the feminine. And so, he's like deep into studying A Course in Miracles. And I'm like this living, breathing example of everything that isn't. And I really kind of feel like he came to sort of resent me. And there was a lot of passive aggressive. There was a lot of sort of kind of obsessive of like, how do I get through to him? And like, that's the pattern that I fall into. And I still fall into that in my current relationship, is like, how do I get through to him? And I've noticed with this being that I'm with now, it's like the best way for me to get through to him is actually to tend to my psychic landscape, which is where my ability to be of service comes from. Mm-hmm. But it's also like, I feel like in a lot of ways, it's where he best hears me. So me having all of these sort of like doubts about like whether to break up or not, like it didn't surprise me that all of a sudden he popped out and had the actual physical conversation with me, because I'd been seeding the I've been kind of seeding that for a while. It's like, it's not a conversation that I want to have. It's not something I actually want to go through. But I think it's something that we still needed to talk about, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's really interesting in this, don't be childish and don't accept childish behavior in others.
Yeah.
You can nurture without mothering, love without saving.
Yes.
Yeah. That saving is like how do I get through to him is a little bit of a drama triangle position.
It totally is. And it actually like devalues him as a mature man who is going to therapy. And like the whole reason he brought this conversation up is because of like the nasty shit that he's trying to sort through in therapy with himself. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to put that on me.
Right.
And he knows what I do, and we've talked, and like the fact that he's hit something in himself that he doesn't want to talk to me about, like I need to respect that and not try to fix that. And just give him space to breathe and move through that. Mm-hmm. He thinks he gets dramatic, and he's like, I don't know when I'm going to be through this, but what time has shown me is that it's usually a few weeks.
If that, you know what I mean? And the more time you can give somebody, if they're actually going through it, if somebody's not willing to go through it, it can take a lifetime,
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's the difference between like emotional avoidance and somebody just working through their stuff,
Right. And the person that I was with before, like he was allegedly processing his stuff, but like he really wasn't.
Right.
And this being that I'm with now, this beautiful man, like I have watched him make significant shifts in the 2 years that I've known him, specifically when he's like deep in his therapeutic process. And what
That's
always
beautiful.
went, it is beautiful. Yeah. And it's like, it's for, like, it's like this, my mom calls it like a chivalrous relationship. She was like, you are really the lady at the manor right now, and he is out there doing his nightly work. Yes. Right. And like, what happens when the knight's out there doing his nightly stuff in his shining gray semi? Like, I need to stay home and I need to tend to my garden and I need
Exactly. Put some in the crock pot for when he gets back,
Exactly.
Enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Put the beans in the crock pot. He'll bring back some meat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Beautiful when that works out, when that works out, that's a really beautiful thing. And then when everybody respects everyone else's energetic agility to be able to move between each of those states is also like, wow, that's like, that's living the dream right there.
Yeah, no, it really is. And like, there's like, from a performative standpoint, like, I feel like he gets guilty when he gets caught up in imagining what he thinks I want from him, opposed to actually just resting in the idea that I want him to do exactly what he needs to do.
Exactly. I mean, and that cuts both ways too, like,
oh, totally.
if I'm trying to preempt like what I think my partner wants, like, then I'm now in the way. I've lost touch with what I want.
Right.
And I'm killing the magnetism. Yep. Like I'm impeding my own desire. And like, I know that's not what he wants. Because he wants me to be alive, joyful, delightful, and nourishing. That's what nourishes him.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, if I lose that radiance because I'm trying to preemptively figure out his preferences, like, who gives a fuck about preferences?
Yes.
His desire is for my desire to be fully lit. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, I think, and I've had this experience with him multiple times where like he'll share something with me that feels uncomfortable. That's like it's an uncomfortable truth, or he's telling me something that he's done that he doesn't feel great about. And like the first time, like he like one of our conversations about that, I'm sitting at the counter at his house and he's like moving things. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I don't want you to throw something at me. And I'm like, have I ever? And like our last conversation, he's like, do me a favor and don't burn the trucker hat. And I'm like, why would I do that? And he's like, I can imagine what this is going to look like online. I was like, it's like, you don't trash talk someone that you love, that you still want to be with, like that. You don't do that. And I feel like he's so used to women just coming unglued on him. Like, he doesn't know what to do with it. And I don't know that I'm always 100% being in integrity with myself. Like, I have the right to be angry about this, but I don't want to fight with him. I want to fight for our relationship. And that's a distinction. And that requires a different way of holding that energy and not damaging things with it. Like, being actually really specific and intentional, like what actually needs to be dismantled versus what do I just want to, like, in my little childish temper tantrum, like, disperse and like, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's saying basically innocence isn't childish. It's childlike. Maintaining a childlike sense of play is not at odds with maturity. It enhances it.
Yeah.
Like, so where's the childish and childlike? So like still being honest, like not pretending you're not feeling what you're feeling.
Right.
But also having the capacity to transmute that into childlike, a sense of curiosity and innocence, rather than throwing a part of you that you don't love at someone else like a ragged hot potato.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a great way of putting that. Yeah. I don't want to throw like hot, jagged shit at him for him to catch when he's already like juggling a bunch of stuff. Like,
right.
Yeah.
So I just want to read line 5 again before I read 14, because I think it's really important with what you're saying. Like, keep your standards high and your heart sincere. Stay in alignment. Remain so grounded that you can immediately feel when you fall out. Good fortune follows. Because it sounds like that's like the path that you're on. And just like the sincerity piece in there, I think is so important, especially in like the talk about like the performativeness versus the big energy.
Yeah.
And like really knowing that tone of sincerity in your heart, so that discernment is really clear.
I I have the capacity to be angry. I do.
Absolutely. And you should. Do you know what I mean? Right. It's just where are you directing that you have the capacity to sear and the skill not to.
Yeah.
You have the capacity to direct that somewhere more useful, you know? And you have the capacity to just burn the field and tell them you're fucking pissed.
Yeah.
If that's what's called for, that's what's called for. But that's, you know, like, what is sincere?
What is sincere? Yeah, I noticed something. I had this person come through my field of experience. I mean, I went through a relationship in a way like last year with someone that could have taken years. You know, they came at me with all the love bombing stuff, and from a personal and a professional capacity, to talk about preferences is like everything that I thought I had ever wanted. And like, here I am. Like, and it was one of those phases where my man and I, we weren't talking, and we weren't like actually in a committed relationship. And then all of a sudden this person's here, and then he started kind of trickling his way back into my awareness. And like, I started noticing more of these behaviors with this other, and it made me really angry. And like, I did not have a problem fighting with them. I had no problem fighting with that person. Like,
and sometimes that's what that person comes for.
Right.
Like, for you to really feel like, okay, this is appropriate rage. This is like rage for me. Yes. Like in Maine, where I live, like they burn the blueberry barrens before the winter, because that actually is what serves the soil. And I see rage a lot like that. It's like necessary. Actually, it nourishes by completely clearing the field.
Yeah. I don't feel like that's an appropriate energy between he and I right now.
Right. Exactly. That's beautiful. Like, to know that, like, if rage is what's called for, like rage is what comes, you know, like, but having, and that's what this line 5 is saying, like being so completely in alignment with what is sincere, be that rage, be that tenderness, be that, you know, so that you can immediately feel when you're falling out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was doing a pretty good job of tracking that as I was on my trip. I was sort of making every decision based on what was allowing me to feel more whole. There's this wonderful story that Clarissa Pinkola Estes talks about Procrustes and his little perfect bed. Have you heard that one?
No.
So it's this innkeeper who has this beautiful bed, and it's like, it's the perfect bed, but you have to be the perfect person to fit in the perfect bed. And if you don't fit, then he will stretch you to fit the width, the length of the bed. Or if you're too much, then he'll lop off limbs. Like, you lose parts of yourself in order to fit on the perfect bed. So I've been really navigating myself by that allegory lately, by that mythology. So I don't want to chop myself off for anyone, but I also can't overstretch myself. And my nervous system right now is making it really fucking clear.
Hey, like, don't you just keep walking till you find another inn with a better bed?
You go sleep in the fucking barn, like whatever.
Exactly. Whatever. Put some hay on the floor of the barn,
right? Like, that looks cool, but no thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sounds like a little bit too much.
Right. Like, I'm pretty sure that's not worth the cost.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty sure I can sleep anywhere. So.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it's interesting. So treasure has this one yin line amongst a lot of yang lines, and it's fire over earth. And it's the treasure is yours. Distribute it wisely. The treasury of the true Dharma eye opens and reflects in your own. You are specific, but not separate. You are the treasure. The treasury is continuously open to you. You have everything you need. This is a hexagram of unfettered sovereignty and success. You are a treasure. You have treasure. The question then follows, are you at ease with having treasure? Or, oh, that's funny. Or are you tossing it away like a ragged hot potato because you don't deserve nice things? Use your wealth to nourish goodness in yourself and others. Allow yourself to metabolize and spread the wealth you've been given like so much rich compost. Distribute your energy and your talents widely. Your glittering virtue is the crown jewel. You are enriched and enriching. There's a sense of good fortune written in the stars here. Juicy karmic fruits are being eaten at last. Honor, virtue, success, wealth. Nature has ordained it. Let it be. Like the Empress in the tarot deck, you can easily metabolize abundance. I mean, there are no good or bad hexagrams, but it's kind of hard to beat this one. Here is prosperity, not just in the material sense, but in the spiritual sense. The treasury is open. It was there all along, but you've gotten out of your own way now. You can see it, feel it, be enveloped. Align your essence with the treasure being presented to you now. Live with a richness. Have it all. Share it all. This hexagram has a funny way of appearing when you're broke. A reminder to investigate your relationship to scarcity. Why are you sitting on your treasure chest acting all sad? Stand up and open it. Stick your hand deep into the cache of gold doubloons. Can you feel it now? How will you get them home? Probably be easier if you distributed them along the way. Do you have outdated inherited ideas about money that you have to address? Do you believe that money and people who have it are bad? If you have a lot, do you let it isolate you? Now would be a pretty urgent time to address that. Now is the time to clear all those old ideas about money and power and open yourself to receive unfettered. Trust yourself to metabolize wealth responsibly. Tap into your Buddha nature. How? Be still and notice what you're made of. Notice the sensations that pass through your body. Notice the thoughts that persist in silence. What are they telling you about who you are? What are they saying you can't possibly be? Let those monkeys scamper off into the forest. Give them some bananas for the road. You have plenty. You have everything you need and then some. The treasure is not yours to hoard. It's yours to steward. Guide the flow of this wealth into the world and behold the gleaming growth it provides. Take it all in and don't for a moment allow yourself the indulgence of smugness. Keep distributing virtue. Toss those doubloons. Share beauty with benevolence. You are fitted for goodness, or you would not have such treasure laid out before you. Deliver it from evil. Do not be deluded by ideas of ownership. Do no harm. There's nothing to defend. Don't staunch the flow. Stay clear and enjoy the ride. So that's what's enveloping 17 and all this stuff about innocence and maturity and childlike versus childish. And being able to understand that leadership comes from following and be a lamp unto yourself. And the only way to do that is to kind of.
I feel like the only thing I can follow right now is my nervous system. It is. It's so totally in charge of everything.
I mean, sometimes your nervous system, though, there's, I like to also have that observer consciousness online when following my nervous system, because my nervous system will run away from some things that are good for me.
Yes.
Really learning the difference between a trauma response and a real-time no was a very deep, dark, subtle, long-term task for me.
Well, and that's funny you mentioned that. That's because my nervous system, I had to actually unravel that with him, the difference between this intense, anxious arousal response, even sending a text sometimes.
Sure. Oh my God. The difference between walking away and running away is enormous in the body, but will come out the same.
Yeah.
It'll look the same from the outside, but boy, the difference in energy between walking away and running away is huge, huge.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that I've had to really tune really deeply into that instinctive place within myself. It's this is good for me. This is genuinely good for me.
Even when it hurts sometimes.
Even when it hurts.
Yeah.
Even when I'm scared.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's been a lot. This is our third cycle of doing this. He and I, we first met and we were super into each other, and he was so not ready in any capacity to like move into a relationship, and he stepped back to take care of everything that he had going on. And he was in a place of deep loss when we met. Like he was like 6 months out of losing his relationship. He was in the process of losing his ranch, losing his job, losing his, ability to be a full-time dad with his kids. Like he like fucking hardcore in it. And then, and we met and we hung out for like, we were moving really like, felt so good with each other for about 6 weeks or so. And then he pulled back, and then we kind of danced our way towards each other again. And then last winter we spent most of the winter together, but he was also grieving. He was still grieving during that time. And my system knew that. And I think at some level, I also knew that at some point, like the time that we spent together would also need to be balanced out, because he was in that grieving space with him catching up to the stuff that like needed to happen in between. So whereas I don't regret doing it, some part of me also knew that like, if you step into that space with someone when they're in that, there will come a time where they will have to go through that on their own. Does that make sense?
It does. And what it's also bringing up for me right now in what you've said so far is, why then are you requesting space in your grief? Why won't you allow him to do what you did for him?
I will, but we're both like, because he's at capacity, because he can't actually step in with physically not being here. And then with just having time and space for the kids, he actually can't physically step into that.
How does that feel though for you?
It hurts. It hurts, and it feels a little bit like being dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, like even in the last 2 weeks of us not talking, I've gotten in touch with things in myself that like I wasn't getting in touch with when he and I were talking. Mm-hmm. Like he did. He to the best that he was able. Like we talked through the whole process. We talked through the whole process of the abortion. We made every decision together. Like we talked through all of that. And then on the other side of it, like he was the first person I told about Grom, that what I needed to do with that. And we talked through all of that. We talked through my trip. We talked through everything. And I got to the point where like all of that for me is spewing and dispersing. And I have hit my shutdown point, and
right.
I actually just want to be left alone. Like,
are you having physical intimacy through all that verbal processing? Like,
no.
Oh, that's a bummer. Yes. I think it can be really depleting to just do so much verbal processing without physical intimacy.
Yeah. I wouldn't say we've necessarily been doing a ton of verbal processing, just talking.
Okay.
Just talking, just to hear each other's voices more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like the next phase for us is to rekindle that physical intimacy, which we haven't had the chance to do. And he told me he's scared to make love with me. He doesn't want to get me pregnant again. Like he didn't know. He wasn't counting on how hard I would grieve that. He really didn't have any kind of concept.
Did you?
No.
Yeah. I think it's hard to know.
Yeah. How can you know?
How could you know?
How could you know? Even though,
especially if you don't think, like, if you're like, oh, the odds of that happening right now or so, yeah, internet says, well, you know, yeah. And then you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. Well, and like, that's just it. Like, we've tracked my cycle as our means of birth control.
Yeah.
And like, I got pregnant on the tail end of our vacation together. Like after sleeping in bed next to him and his kids for 3 fucking weeks. Like, all of us, there would be this delicious round of I love yous and good night, everybody, every night. My body was like, we're going to make a baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, no, we're not. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And from a very selfish standpoint, like one of the first things I did when I found out I was pregnant, like I immediately went online to make sure that I could find an abortion within my area and that was something that I could take care of before I'd even told him. Like that was one of the very first things that I did. The second thing that I did was I opened my closet doors and I looked at all my beautiful clothes and was like, nope. Like, no. Like, I don't like putting my body through like having this kind of identity of being this matured woman who I am more comfortable in my skin than I have ever been in my life, in my skin, in my sexuality, in like just the way that I project and present and move through the world than I ever have been in my life. And I'm almost 42. My daughter is 23. My granddaughter just turned 2. Like, I looked into my closet. I looked at like who I am, and I was like, looked in the mirror and like imagined my body like going through that whole phase of changing and doing all of that at this point in my life. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. But then we also spent a day in it where we were like really actually just kind of, we sat for like 24 hours in that possibility of what would it be like. And it was really beautiful, and it was really, 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 really sweet.
Did you guys check in together, on his grief on losing that vision?
He is numb to it right now.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's another reason for the space is like, until he can actually get in touch, he needs to get in touch with that.
Because that's a pretty beautiful thing to share, like that vision together.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And to honor both of your experience of that, I think is important.
Yeah, we haven't, he hasn't, we just got touched into that, like our last conversation, like pretty intensely. And like, we both really kind of admitted like, well, there was clearly parts of both of us that really wanted that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
I'd never met a person that I actually wanted to make a baby with. Like the person that I had a baby with, I was 17, you know, I just got knocked up. And like, once she was in there, I was like, okay, we're going to do this. And like, I haven't had that. I have never slept with or met another human being who I was like, oh my God, I'm being human with you. It actually and we talked about it. He and we talked about it, but we talked about it as like this kind of abstract thing that like, and the last conversation I had, I know it was like the thing that was like, the thing that we both said consciously, no, we're not going to do this.
Right.
But then that thing that we both secretly really wanted to do with each other.
Yeah, the body will.
Right?
Yeah, the body will do the body thing without the mind.
Like the realities collided in my body.
Yeah, and I would say, like, you know, make sure, like, that. I fucking love men so much. Like,
same.
Like this idea of this thing is coming through me right now of just like, wow, like he doesn't want to get you pregnant again because maybe he doesn't want that grief again. And to have that 24-hour conversation where you have that shared vision and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Like that, you know, honoring his, like witnessing his process around that too. Like, I know it's easy because it's like, we're not easy, but like it's immediate for you because it's in your body, but like that he's having that experience as well.
Well, and that's why I asked him when I was like, let's pause.
Yeah.
Let's pause because like,
but is that like, but do you think like turning away from each other is
I don't feel like we're turning away from each other. That's not what I've experienced of the way that we navigate things. What I've experienced of the way that we navigate things is that the more attuned I am to my inner world, And the more connected I feel in that, the more responsive he is to me.
That makes total sense. Yeah.
It's like this.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like from a cognitive level, like I don't think he's really aware of that process, but from an embodied
energetic level, totally.
Level, he's totally aware.
Yeah. It's that, that feminine masculine call and response is like, yeah.
Well, and I noticed that when I lose touch with that is often when he will also withdraw. He's like, and he's like, he said something interesting to me, like he needs to stop using me. I was like, I don't feel like you've ever used me. And a lot of that is like our relationship has been so very physical. It's been so primarily like sex oriented. It's the very beginning. That's kind of the thing that we always gravitate towards each other. But
it's a beautiful way to reconnect. Yeah. Fuck yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Like I don't feel used. The one time I feel like he tried to do a booty call on me, and this is funny about the childlike thing. The one time he tried to do a booty call on me, this is hilarious. You'll love this. We hadn't really talked for a while, and like he had sent me a text. He was like, "I'm sorry about the way that I treated you," and like he'd been kind of weird. And I texted back. I was like, "Well, thank you, but this is a conversation for voices." And then he hadn't called or anything. I was like, okay. And then he was like, so I'm home. Like, do you want to come over? And like, he's like, I'm just here. Like, and I texted him back. I was like, oh, hi, Drunky McDrunkerton. Like, I was thinking about you today. And it was too, like, I had this strong physical pull. Like, I was thinking about him all day. And he was like, oh, well, yeah, that's me. And I was like, yeah, I know. I'm like,
oh,
that was hilarious though. He was like, so does that like, so would you want to come over? And I was like, well, I don't know. It's getting kind of late. I'd hate to keep you up past your bedtime. I just fucked with him. I came home and like, I was sending him pictures from in bed and he was like, why are you doing this? Like, what are you? He's like, what are you doing? You're not coming over. And, like the last text he sent me, like, was late. It was like between like 11 and midnight, right? And I was like, I didn't respond. And he was like, I'm like sad that you're not here. And I texted him back in the morning. I was like, well, this is what happened. I was like, I was feeling so turned on, and I was like imagining like slipping off my clothes and like climbing naked into the sheets and pressing my body up against you. And then I passed out.
Oh.
So like playfully, right? Like renegotiating that. That's the only time I ever felt like he tried to do that. And I was like, no, baby, that's not happening.
Yeah.
And then he called me like 2 days later and we had like a big conversation. It's like, like six ways of apology. It was so cool.
It's good to playfully renegotiate those terms sometimes, you know? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why I like the whole like the feminine rage thing as redirecting men, like that doesn't speak to me.
No, I think rage is like for clearing my own field. Like it's for me to know, like when I came to the end of my previous relationship, I felt an incredible amount of rage that was just like, it was almost just like Sigourney Weaver in Ghostbusters, like is what I felt like. Like it wasn't at him. It was just coming through me, clearing a space around me. And then I'm like, okay, now it's time for me to go. And I think none of us have any question about that anymore. Like, I think that's abundantly clear. The field of this relationship is cleared. Like, what is going to grow here next is not what was.
Yeah.
You know?
I had that experience too with the previous one that I was in. I had some of that experience come up before I found out I was pregnant, as my hormones were kind of changing. Like I had like real like extreme rage, like, and it was kind of directed at him, but it wasn't really like, I called it my car throwing rage because I was driving his car at the time as it was coming through. And I just physically wanted to like take his car and hurl it at him. And I was like,
that's interesting. Well, yeah, I think rage and boundaries are ill used to try to change someone else's behavior.
Yes.
You know, I think they're like, okay, this is how I'm tethered to the system at this moment through like, I feel the need, I'm being propelled out of this part of the, you know, of this part of the field. Like I'm moving away from this thing and more toward what is more fully alive.
Yeah. Well, that's curious. You say what's more fully alive because like, I couldn't keep it. You know, my body miscarried. Like I wound up taking the meds after the fact just to make sure because that was what we decided to do together. But my body let it go. When we made the decision not to do it, I felt it stop growing. Like my body stopped, just stopped the process in its track. And then my dog died. And like, I didn't realize until after he was gone just how stressed I had been about his deterioration and about like his deterioration, just in a simple word. I was super stressed about his deterioration. And then now like the death of the retreat and like the pause of the relationship, I really don't feel like it's dying. I feel like we're giving it a chance to be resurrected, but there are things within it that need to die in order for that to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And and what this reading is saying is that it's like, where are you still holding some of that childish, where are there still childish behaviors that could become childlike innocence behaviors?
Yeah. Like
where's the grabbing versus the just touching things with sticky sweet hands?
Oh, I like that. I typically communicate that with titty pictures, but
I fully support that. That's great.
Yeah, I've been doing that for a while. He's like, I love how creative you are. Like in the woods and like
That's awesome. Oh,
it's good. It's fun for both of us because it's like I don't know, it suits this like voyeuristic aspect of me that I actually don't really want to share with the rest of the world. Like I specifically want to share that with him.
Well, that's the performative versus theatrical thing too.
We go. I love that. It's such a good distinction. It is theatrical. It's fun for me. Like,
yeah. There's a lot of joy in that. I
totally would have been like a pinup model. Like that
and that comes back to like what is sincere.
Yeah.
And that when you are clear on where the sincere heart is, like you'll feel immediately when you fall out of alignment, when you fall out of theatrical joy, theatrical exuberance into performance, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that just gave me like big time chills.
That's a really difficult and to me, it's just like a high end skill because like falling out at the top of your range is so easy to do. But really getting that mastery at the top of the range when you're in that big energy and you can actually discern between performance and theatrical exuberance like that without starting to leak all over the place performatively. Being able to hold the field in the upper range is skill. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do know how to do that. It's natural for me. It's less natural for me this time of year.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a hard time of year for me. Come like as it starts to get warmer, like
because everything's at a higher pitch, you know? So like it's so much easier to leak into everything already just fucking humming, you know, like everything's so amplified.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's when the skin comes out and the sexy poetry comes out.
Exactly. Yeah. Penetration rather than permeation.
Yeah.
It's easy to get sloppy in penetration. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much it was so nice to get to chat with you. I'm such a big fan of your writing.
Thank
And
you.
I enjoy so much what you do in the world. And so
I appreciate you reaching out, and I hold very little regard for psychic type readings.
Well, the I Ching is a little different. It's weird.
It's very different.
Yeah.
It's very different. I really appreciate you reaching out and listening and holding space and witnessing and playing.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I wanted to do this podcast, because it's just I love getting to experience people at this soul level, just for an hour. It's kind of nice,
Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet.
You.
Yeah.
Very sweet.
I'll see you around the interwebs.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining for the Fuck Suffering with me, Ray Hance podcast today. I hope you enjoyed yourself. If you would like a personal reading like I do for people on the podcast, come to rayhance.com, REIHANCE.com, and go to the Oracle of Emergence page. If you'd like the book I use on this podcast, it's called Oracle of Emergence, an evolutionary I Ching, and that's available on Amazon. If you're interested in a one-on-one session, pocket coaching, one of my Fuck Suffering practice groups, or a one-day boundaries and belonging session, you can also come to the website. You can find me on Instagram, you can find me on the Facebook, and you can find me on my YouTube channel. I'm really all over the place these days. It's my great pleasure to introduce people to the I Ching. And I hope you develop your own relationship with it. And I hope you come back and listen again and subscribe, rate, and review so that this baby podcast can find its way in the world. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week.